I'll call to order the December 20 Climate Action Committee meeting. Can we get a roll call?
Yes. Committee member Wall.
Here.
Committee member Simon.
Here.
Yep. Committee member Lang.
Here.
Thank you. Committee member Burtis.
Here.
Thank you. Committee member Alden.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Rose is absent, and then Chair Johnson.
Here. Okay. Do the pledge of allegiance. I guess you get to do that remote. I do my pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
1956. Maybe do we have anybody on one for public comment?
Checking for raised hands now. For open time, and I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Does anybody have it? So going on to the next item, the approval of meeting minutes from November. Does anybody have any comments or discussion on the November meeting minutes?
I have just a thought. If there is a recording, we can always go back and look at the recording, but when we're doing the official minutes, is it possible to get just a little bit more detail? Instead of sort of, questions were asked, kind of a bullet point? Is that possible?
It is possible. We typically just do action minutes for these meetings, so
Right.
it's not getting into the detail of this person said this.
Well, right.
That.
Right, I understand that, and don't need attribution necessarily, but when there's a specific question from anybody about something that, especially something that might be followed up on, it seems like that would be helpful, especially since we're investigating so much as we go along. It's just a thought.
Or maybe even just a topic.
Was there
Yeah.
one particular item that you wanted more detail on for the minutes?
It says, so on the presentation of the greenhouse gas inventory, members asked questions about how it was completed. It's just on the updates and reports. Committee member Simon attended the Marin Cast Collaborative in October and shared updates from other jurisdictions. I mean, I think that in particular might be a helpful. Like, what are the other jurisdictions doing might be helpful for our deliberations. So if we're not taking notes ourselves and looking at our notes, sometimes I'm guilty of not getting back to my notes, or forgetting. That sort of seems like something that might be helpful to keep us on a track where we're, making some decisions about aligning with other communities or approaches to caps, things like that. I don't know what the rest of you might think.
I can definitely try and add more detail to these in the future. They're not intended to be exhaustive.
Right.
And it is there's a stop doing trade-off there.
Absolutely. And I do understand that. I'm not asking for something exhaustive, but just when there is something that is germane to certainly future discussions, it seems like that having that reminder to go back to might be helpful.
Okay.
During the meeting, if there's something that we want to know to record, we can suggest that live as well.
Right. Well, right. And we talked about quit carbon or ready, set, replace. And that's the sort of thing that, if we wanted to continue that conversation, it's nice to have that reference point.
Besides that, were there any comments on the meeting minutes? Thanks. No, can I get
I would move to approve the minutes as written.
can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Nobody is abstaining. Okay, the meeting minutes are accepted. General business? Maybe.
So we have one item on the agenda tonight, and that's a summary of 2023 community engagement efforts and discussion of plans for 2022.
Oh, look at that picture.
And Amy was going to lead this conversation. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to do my best to replicate what I think she wanted to discuss in these items. I just have a couple of slides. One is just to recap everything that was accomplished in 2023. So the committee has really put a lot of effort into outreach this year, including at the beginning of the year, developing an engagement strategy and goals, providing a lot of recommendations to help redesign the website and add content that wasn't there before. Now we have a whole climate and sustainability section of the website, which didn't used to exist. Also, the committee worked on revising the tabling materials with some new flyers, a checklist, and materials from partner organizations like the county, the Switch is On, BayRen, as well as developing activities and giveaways that we had at events like the 4th of July. And the committee was present at 6 events by my count, including 3 farmers markets, the Village Earth Day event, 4th of July, and the Lions Club car show. And at those events, interacted with approximately 200 community members. And then last but definitely not least, the committee and Martin and Karen in particular worked on 50 more or less articles that were published in the Corte Madera Chronicles. So that's a huge lift, and thank you to Martin and Karen for work. We have, yeah, it's difficult to tell. Unfortunately, we don't know how many people are reading those articles in particular. But the newsletter does go out to over 6,000 recipients each week and has about a 50% open rate. So there's a lot of people who are potentially reading those articles, and the click rate, while it's not a perfect indicator, has been trending upwards. So
Trending how much upwards?
Martin, do you have a?
Still sort of in the single digits, you know, I mean, these are people who click through, so I guess we could put something more exciting in the links to promote that kind of thing, maybe.
So, yeah, the option to read it, you know, if you look at it, is either just scan through.
Right.
And read the whole thing, or click from top to
Right,
top.
yeah, no,
So the click rate would just be, oh, you see something interesting rather than scanning.
right, good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, it's actually just if they click on any of the links.
The links, so, and what they tend to click on, not surprisingly, is ones, you know, to get to rebate information, that kind of thing. I mean, that works.
Mhm.
But really, I think the most we've ever had is like 9 or 10.
Clickbait.
Clickbait is what we
We
need.
need clickbait, all right, get TikTok rolling.
Anything else anyone wants to add to these accomplishments? This is just what I pulled up, but
No, I don't. I know that because he reached out to me, Martin is putting together an article. Is that published yet?
Well, it's going to be in Friday's Chronicles. And so, and Phoebe added some stuff. We talked about most of this stuff as well, but also said that we launched the student ambassador program, which
Great,
is cool. And
Policy initiatives.
and policy initiatives that you provided, which I think we covered here some.
yeah, this should say 2023 engagement accomplishments because
Yeah,
it
that's
doesn't cover the
Yeah.
policy side.
Yeah. I was just gonna, well, was there more on this?
I have another slide. I just wanted to see if anyone
Okay.
else had anything to add.
I get. Um. Yes, my impression of all these is there's a. Particularly when I was, I'm coming from, I just, spent the afternoon looking at the building permits. Is maybe there's two kinds of community outreach we might want to think about looking at. And one is sort of overall community awareness, which it seems what this is really targeting. And then the other might be, just looking at these building permits, is really when residents are at the point of decision-making for making appliances. And I certainly see value for both, but I'm hoping there might be some avenues. Again, I'm just looking at this building permit data, which was pretty sobering in terms of people continuing to purchase gas appliances, where we can possibly do some education and or outreach at that point of decision-making.
We've talked about it, and Phoebe helped me remember some of the discussion and action, but we've talked about having some information that's available at the counter
Right.
when people come in, because it's, and we've talked about the timeliness that by the time people for a building permit or a remodel permit are
Too late.
coming in, it's too late. But there are people coming in for, even people coming in for permits on replacement. If they want to replace with something, it's almost too late. They've already they've already made steps down a path. But, and that's just, I'm just trying to recap the conversation. So.
Right. Okay. And maybe should I step back and just say, summarize this building permit stuff, or is this?
No, I think that's
Let's-
more
let's
appropriate
do
during updates.
Great.
Updates
But I guess
reports.
what I see is, well, maybe we do it at updates. Yes.
So this is
Maybe too
getting
late
into
to
the, yeah, the
something
conversation
different. Yeah.
about what the committee wants to focus on next year.
Okay.
And there's been a couple ideas that have been raised so far, and then really the purpose of this item is to just discuss and, maybe set some priorities
Yeah.
for the next year. So
I was just viewing it as a trying to separate out community engagement, maybe something separate. But yeah, that's wrong.
yeah, I think that's valid to bring up during this discussion. That is one of the items that's been brought up is, maybe some more targeted outreach that's focused on the building community side. Whether that's residents who are doing remodels or appliance replacements, or the building community contractors. There's also this item which Amy, put a lot of work into this year, revising the advocacy presentation that I think was given in the past to the Lions Club.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so the committee had set a goal at the beginning of the year of doing a certain number of additional presentations to other community groups, which
HOAs.
and potentially HOAs, which didn't happen this year, but that's a possibility for next year. If the committee wants to focus on that, pick that up again. Also, the new town hall facility will be opening at some point in the next year, and there's a lot of green sustainable features in that building, so that could be an avenue for outreach to the community about, the new town hall is all electric. Here's how you can go all electric. That sort of education outreach. I believe someone also brought up the idea of having a community event at the library, sort of on that broad community awareness side, as well as some of these standing events that the committee has been participating in. Like the 4th of July, and whether the committee wants to continue participating in those, make any changes, just to sort of get the ball rolling, thinking about this, and whether there's any other outreach avenues that you want to pursue next year.
I guess what's sobering to me is that of the 18 people who replaced water heaters, 17 chose gas. So And how can we reach those people?
I think another thing that we talked about that would be more of an incentive was to say incentivize. With the town set up a schedule, a fee schedule that incentivized electric water heaters, the permits free. And the gas water heaters are.
We know how that goes over.
Are more cumbersome.
But yeah, couldn't that come out of our budget, for instance? I mean, we could allocate X dollars
We could
for
rebate.
that, right?
Well, the committee doesn't have a budget,
I thought we did.
not that's particular to the committee.
It's not done.
Yeah,
Well, that.
there's a budget line item for, sort of climate, my position, climate
Right.
action and the committee in general, but it's not sort of specific to the committee. I'm not sure that the funds can be
But
allocated.
the only way that's gonna change is if the
Yeah.
design community who's designing this stuff or doing that, or the people have an incentive to do it.
Yeah, but that is a separate work plan item, the fee schedule update. So that will be considered as part of that.
I guess, yeah, I keep going back to this data and then only in terms of the furnaces, 50% now, some were just replacements and all that were switched, but 50% went to gas.
Oh,
Or
so
associated with, or they're associated with remodeling, for example.
Right, yeah.
We saw-
So, I mean, it's great that we're educating the community to some degree. But I think to the extent we're not really reaching the appliance change,
Right,
maybe, and again, I think it's an imperfect search that I'm doing here, but
but it's,
we can do
it's,
something.
yeah,
But I just think we have to strategize, not just. Again, there's, in my mind, there's sort of the big picture layer of educating the community, which I think. You need to, it can't come out of the blue here. You have to have general awareness, but then there's also this really specific. How can we reach these decision makers and how can we, as you say, influence it?
Well, maybe we were going to talk about this later, but for example, based on your, what you found out about, space heaters, right, the furnaces. If we were to, identify houses that were built, homes, whatever, built 30 years ago or so that might be getting ready for a furnace replacement, identify them and, proactively suggest that they have furnace inspections, because that's what happened to me. Someone came and inspected the furnace and said, you're lucky you're not dying, right? Because the heat exchanger is rotten. And, then you make that decision to change. So maybe some kind of gentle persuasion to get someone to say, yeah, I should have a look at my furnace. It hasn't been bothering me. Of course, I don't think about it. But here comes this thing, and if we have a list or connections to someone who can provide, free furnace inspection outfits. And then you get the ball rolling that way.
so
Right.
that's where Ready, Set, Replace and Quick Carbon come into play, because it's make a plan before it's an emergency.
But here's the thing, I think,
And they come in and they do the assessment.
Right.
And give you like, this is gonna go first,
right,
and this is gonna cost you X amount, but here are the rebates, and
right,
there's the plan of action, so it's not a big mystery and you're prepared.
right. But I think, Phoebe, correct me if I'm wrong, we can't really promote one organization or another. So how do we start this without pointing to one organization?
I think what Phoebe was looking for here was input from the committee on what types of outreach and communication and education we want to add to this list. And then there's probably another couple of people and probably another venue or meeting to talk about exactly how do we implement on that idea. Phoebe, am I capturing that right?
I'm not opposed to talking about this specifics here. This is our only agenda item, so.
Here's my concern about this list.
Uh-huh.
I think we have to have an objective of what this list is accomplishing. And I think it's accomplishing one objective, but probably not the only objective for education.
Yeah,
And I think we gotta,
there's the general There's the general
we should
outreach
really-
and then there's the specifics,
Right,
right?
and figure out our resources and the strategy as to how to do both.
Yeah.
Would be my
I'm in
recommendation.
agreement.
I don't know.
I'm in
Yeah.
agreement. What I was trying to do
Yeah.
is give Phoebe the language to put on the list so that we could then follow up rather than trying to hash it out today.
So next year, I mean, is this a conversation in January or no, February?
Or a couple people could break out
Mm-hmm,
and bring to this meeting
mm-hmm,
on February what the approach that they recommend is to getting the
Alternatives.
Yeah,
yeah,
or a couple of alternatives. I don't-
Right.
it,
I'm happy to jump on that.
I would love for someone from the building community, not that. To jump in, because I think we're kind of, at least I would be not shooting in the dark and looking at building permits, but you're right, it's probably too late, or how do we, I don't know,
Yeah.
This is what I do actually.
how do we
so.
do it? So.
Phoebe,
So
we
maybe
have
there
three
is- I
people
don't know.
engaged in a conversation, right?
Then it's.
And
then
avoid
it's
the
a
Brown Act?
committee or something, I don't know.
Yes.
So,
Can I
if-
comment? Oh, sorry to.
yeah.
Please.
Oh, you had your hand raised.
Well, yeah. No, I think Karen's got a good point, which is these are channels of outreach. But we have not talked about what the specific messages are that we're trying to communicate. And for instance, around hot water heaters, there are very good subsidies in place for 2024 that may not be there in 2025. And so I think there should be, to Karen's point, there ought to be specific methods of outreach for specific topics. So for instance, I'm wondering, I don't know if we're allowed to use the data, but of course the town has the permit data and can tell when people last installed the water heater, right? So if it's been 10 or 15 years, houses that have done them, let's say 15 years or longer ago, do you send them a letter that says, just so you're aware, there are a lot of incentives available and, here's some resources. But I think the big point which Karen is making is great, which is let's decide on what the specific priorities are we're trying to communicate, because these are sort of generic outreach places to interface with people, but we don't talk about, if you're talking about EVs, you're going to make certain set of communication to certain constituencies. If it's water pumps, water heaters, and maybe something else. So I think it's a very good point.
And I think, to your point, I think you're refining this, what I was kind of bringing up very well, is that if we have certain objectives, then it becomes more obvious where we go to talk to people about them. Yeah, and this water heater thing really came off of the data, and I missed November's meeting where showed the water heaters being really the second biggest as we can determine carbon contributor. So, okay, EVs, we have certain messages, but couldn't we focus on that? And that was just the one thing. I don't know.
Right.
So, but so should we have certain priorities for 2024 of what we want to communicate and then determine which venues are best to do that?
Definitely.
And do we want I mean, I would advocate a continuation somewhat of what we've done in the past, which is that, I like that in the 6 item priorities and to the general public, again, for the overview, for the general message, which maybe there needs to be continuation of, but also maybe
That was the awareness side.
maybe a couple more, and you don't want to get too complicated, 1 or 2 others, just, and I
Well,
think
to your point,
whatever
I mean,
we want to try for.
if we are focused on getting fossil fuel out of homes, then that's the criteria, that's the goal. We want people to make a different choice. If we want to also talk over here about EVs, there's a lot of information out there for people. But where the town comes into play is less about EVs and more about what people are doing in their homes, right? So if we're going to prioritize, it seems to me that that's a health issue. There's a lot of things wrapped up in that.
I was, sorry, just to clarify, Leslie, when I referred to EVs, because we've been having Phil and Phoebe and I have been talking about charger installation specifically for
Right.
instance, multi-tenant landlords. So if we had something clever to say to multi-tenant landlords about, here are some things you should be aware of, then that would be a targeted outreach. Not so much convincing people to buy EVs. I think the auto industry can do that perfectly well, but
Absolutely. No, what I was doing was where does the town have a touch with people? As opposed to a dealership, for instance, where's the town touch people? It is exactly as you said. It is when they're coming in for a permit to install something or to remodel.
I guess, I'm with you, but just a slight qualification is, I think that I hate to call it, the general overview of, climate change is caused by, and here are 6 things you can do, I think is useful to keep going at it.
Oh, yeah.
And that includes EVs.
Oh, yeah,
So
I'm
we
not
keep doing
discounting
that.
those.
And then the other 2 or 3, then we
Right.
decide how we want to get it with the town and get in with it, just, either the chargers, which I think is good. I mean, I think it's also good maybe to have a message for individuals. Here's the process of getting a charger in your home or,
Absolutely.
whatever.
Absolutely.
These 2 things. And
I was not
how do
eliminating
we-
that.
Yeah, how do we, maybe that's one and maybe water heaters one, I don't know. And then figure out a strategy of what we want to do in 2024 to do our best to communicate that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's there are a lot of materials out there that we don't have to reinvent any of
Right.
these wheels,
Yeah,
right?
but I think it's more contact. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
Right.
Yeah, to what extent we can do that,
right.
yeah.
that's really
Right.
what this is.
So I think that it's great that this discussion leads towards community engagement, objective based. And I think we have some ideas about how we might meet that objective, but if 2, 3 people could get together and give this a little bit of form, because I don't think we're that far off.
No.
Meet once, give it some form, discuss it with Phoebe, and then bring it back to this meeting
In February.
in February.
I'm happy.
Is there 3 people that have an interest in doing this?
I'll have an interest in it.
I definitely do. All right.
And,
And
yeah,
Patrick?
so you 3, you're interested?
Yeah.
Yes,
Who?
okay. So
You, me, Pat.
Matt.
Okay.
So Patrick, Phil, and Leslie are gonna meet, to discuss the development of this objective-based community engagement strategy and what the tactics might be.
And then we'll discuss that. Can we throw something your way? Let's say, Phoebe, we have an outline and some thoughts. Can you then share them with other members of the group and get feedback directly from them? Not at all.
I
Okay,
can't share that feedback back with you outside of a meeting.
okay, fine, that's fine. I just want to clarify, because I think Karen has a lot of really good ideas and everybody
We
does.
can agendize it, and then we can publish it in advance and discuss it in open forum, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would be almost as good.
The data that I'm sorry, the data that I pulled was very brief. Can you send that to people or?
Yeah, and I can also try and pull some more data on our end. I just have to make sure what I'm sharing is not
Yeah.
private information.
Yeah,
and
right.
make
I was,
sure
and I would love to circulate it, but I didn't know if it's more than 2 people, and so I
Yeah,
always tended to
Yeah.
send it to Phoebe, yeah.
I was just gonna ask the
Patrick,
same
when are you
question.
getting back?
Can we actually have a group of 3 working on this or not?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
3 you can, yeah.
You and me
Right?
and Phil.
Yeah,
And when are you coming back from your holiday?
Tomorrow. It's not a holiday. Anyway,
Okay. All right, well, we can email each other, the 3 of us can email each other and we can find a time to meet. A couple times maybe, in January.
yep, that sounds good.
and Phoebe, you were gonna try and pull together more data to sort of augment that or look a little more into it. Is
I
that
don't-
something that can be circulated? to the
Karen,
community?
I think the research you did is really great, and I don't think that any research that Phoebe does is gonna trend it any differently.
Differently,
Right,
okay.
I agree.
Yeah, we could add it.
They all replace with gas.
Yeah.
That's,
And so I think that the objective should be clear
Okay.
and development of, how we
That's
can
the summary.
best
Yeah, no, I know.
do that.
Alright.
Okay, no, it's also not a huge number, period. It's not like we've got hundreds and hundreds of people. This is a very small amount and so,
and this was over a 2-year period or something, right?
Yes, and the other thing that, these are things I don't know, and maybe
And it's-
the in here is how many people do it without permits?
right,
And, that, I don't know. I mean,
That's a concern with staff. I know it's balancing that, if they don't
Yeah.
want to. You can give a free permit for electrifying, changing
right.
out.
How do we
to
make it
electric.
easy?
But if you can't up the price for gas or nobody will get a permit.
I bet,
Oh.
well,
I would
I'm
be
just saying, I'm
willing-
wondering how much of this is, we say there's a small amount, but maybe there's an equal amount that don't get permits and just
I'd
go
be
do it,
willing to
right?
bet that if you guys scheduled a meeting where staff could be in attendance virtually or physically, I bet you there's a staff member that would
Yes,
Have some
attend,
insight?
yes.
I think. Yeah.
Yes. I will attend.
Yeah.
Are you asking for a building staff person to attend?
If they were invited,
Yeah,
yeah. I think
I think countywide, we do have those estimates and they're
Wow.
very high.
Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
all that information was really
Unpermitted
interesting to try and
placement.
you guys to consider. Yeah.
no,
The idea is
absolutely.
to incentivize it to the point where it's worthwhile to do it.
Right.
And I don't want to get too into the weeds, but, I don't always read the Chronicle, okay, but the last article in the Chronicle, I just pulled up a very simple one on, switching from gas to electric water heaters. And, to your point, by the time you get the building permit, it's too late, but for the switching to a heat pump water heater, there's just like 2 things you need to do,
Well, it's
check your
trivial.
electric, it's
It's
trivial,
trivial.
but it's just a slight checkup and if there was a way for people to have that,
Mm.
you need a little space, you need to check your electricity voltage. Anyway, go forward. Getting back to this, okay, so we have this subcommittee or whatever, drilling down on that. Do we want to go through the events from last year and say if we want to repeat them, or do you want to wait till you have more objectives and go through it? For the sort of, what we call overall education,
Thank you.
or?
What I
people
understand,
feel?
you want to put your slide back up,
Yeah.
please, Phoebe?
Yes.
And then,
So looking at last year's,
so I'm not, I would like to keep everything that's on this list here. Because, I still see this committee as still kind of young, new. And I think that in 2023, we actually did a lot to refine our message. And I think that, carrying over that work into the 2024 list isn't a huge lift. And even attending those things and expanding that to be a meeting with an HOA or 2 or 3. I don't think it's a huge lift. So I'm advocating we keep the content and the interactions that we had in 2023. We try to repeat those in 2024. And I think that what you brought to light is this ability to objectify something that we haven't really given form to, which is this interface with public and contractors. Are you advocating, can you go to the 2024 list? Are you advocating taking something off?
I guess my concern was when I was at the car show, I just thought there was very few interactions, people with
yeah.
meaningful discussions. And that's, a thought was, I brought up a library presentation just because then people who attended might be interested. It may be a complete flop. I don't know. Phoebe said they did it somewhere else. Just a thought. I'm just wondering if we can refine it to make sure it's there's significant, well, at least there's some interaction.
We did the Lions Club, now I think I want to say it was 2 years ago, but maybe it was just a year ago. It's a very different sort of thing than tabling. Tabling, you can go out and reach people and pull them in, but if you are doing a presentation, the thing that I found really interesting about the Lions Club was it was a general meeting. They had dinner and we kind of came, around like after dinner, and I kind of expected people just to finish dinner and go. And just about everybody stayed. And then after we had a full, PowerPoint presentation and ready to answer questions, a lot of people stayed and there was that back and forth. So you're right, it's a very different type of audience. That was, and then the third is something at a library where it's an invitation, but it's not a general group meeting like an HOA or the Lions Club. So, that's really three different types of approaches.
I guess my only concern is, I feel like with the car show, it may not have been worth it because there were just only a handful of people we found over a certain period of time. Maybe other people felt just being there was worth it, but that was just my take, and maybe we could.
I think that's
Right.
also true for
More
the
charging.
things like the farmer's market. That's really,
Yeah, that was
that's,
kind of a bust.
it's, yeah, it is. It is. I think 4th of July was a bigger success, I mean, because you had more focused family stuff going on. Car shows just make a lot of sense from EV standpoint. I mean, that's just,
Right.
to not be there is like, what are we boycotting?
But the
car
thing is,
shows?
we
I mean-
didn't get any.
Well, I
Well,
think that's probably the
It's
design of
subliminal
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's, you're just an association thing. It's like,
And I think we could do a better job, frankly, at presenting and when we table. I think that we learn a little bit every time we do this. I don't know quite where we're keeping, the book of our learnings. It's important right after something to write down what worked, what didn't, what you do differently. And I don't know that we've done that, but I think we did, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, how do we improve each time and how do we learn from others? Like I keep bringing up, County Parks and Open Space. They do a phenomenal job, but a lot of it is branding and it's an attractive, it's very clearly marked. It's attractive. You're drawn in. So we can refresh and review and up our game a little bit.
Yeah, perhaps, but maybe one thing, if we have these objectives, and for instance, like at the car show, we said, okay, people are there for EVs, at least some of them. Have our big message, okay, how do you obtain
I was just processing.
recharge
Charging.
facilities at your house?
Yep.
Ask us.
That's right.
Here you are.
I'm happy you went there.
And be
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If
Exactly.
we would have had our.
And
focus
forget
be
the
charging.
games and this one could happen, but that would be your main focus. If
Right.
people say, oh, well, how, I live here, how do I do that? Where's the
Right.
nearest one? How, so we really refine it to what's there. And maybe we get more people, I don't know.
I think if our attendance at the car show would have been about charging
Yes.
and how you get chargers in your house,
Mhm.
and where you charge in this
Mhm.
town of Corte Madera, that would have been a lot more compelling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Compelling, I think.
And connected to the event. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's because otherwise I think we're selling electric cars.
Well,
That's what so
we were
many people
selling
do.
a 6-point thing of climate change and make a pledge to get an EV. It didn't seem to attract.
So that begs the question, like, what do we need to change about that particular
Right.
event? And it's always looking at how are you producing an event for a specific audience?
Yes.
And it changes you can't just have the cookie cutter, where you
Hey,
just pull the same thing.
congratulations, we attended last and we learned.
Yes,
You
no,
know, And
exactly.
if we hadn't have gone, we wouldn't have learned.
No, exactly. And it was the second year that we've done it.
Yeah.
The third year's coming up.
Mhm.
Great. We'll do better, right?
But I think some of these, for instance, like a farmer's market, I'm not sure you're gonna get meaningful interaction.
The farmer's market isn't up
Yeah.
there. Was that
Okay.
intentional?
No, this is not intended to be a proposed or exhaustive list at all.
Oktoberfest.
These were yeah, sort of new ideas.
And do you get meaningful things there?
We didn't go because
We didn't go.
nobody
We didn't go.
nobody could attend.
Yeah, we didn't go.
I couldn't attend for medical reasons or something.
Yeah.
But I think to your point, Karen, we should have an objective and have our message.
And an audience. that you're
I think
trying to
we're
reach,
learning, I think
Yeah.
we're learning as we go and,
yeah. Okay.
and I bet that if we would have attended the Oktoberfest, we'd be smarter.
We figured out what would be the
But
message.
I think that because that's focused on, it's really a Corte Madera audience.
Mhm.
4th of July is a broader audience, and then the tabling at the farmer's market or being at the Lions Club car event, that's a much broader audience, right? I mean, they're drawing from, in terms of the Lions Club car show, they're drawing people from all over the Bay Area.
That's true, but I think, okay, people are going there to drink beer. What information are they likely to?
I
concerned
think your
about
point
that.
is clear. I think being more strategic and more
Okay.
targeted about it.
Yeah,
And then Patrick brought up a great point that I wanted to bring back here is that, there are incentives and laws that are changing.
Yep.
Yes.
Where we were 2 years ago on these topics has changed, where we're gonna be in
Dramatically.
2024 has changed, and we can capture that too.
We can bring in a sense of urgency to it as well.
Yeah.
so how?
The
do we
why
wanna
now,
go-
the why now, right?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think what the important point that Karen made is kind of trying to understand, I mean, think about this a little bit from a commercial point of view, but kind of the customer journey, right? And what does the buying decision process look like? And so there's investigation, consideration, and then purchase. And so how can we get ourselves, get the message, into those residents at the right time
Stages.
so that it's exactly. And in some cases, it's individuals. In some cases, it's going to be a building owner or a builder or et cetera. So, I mean, you're asking for a marketing plan, which I think is exactly the right thing. So it's probably something we should dig into
This is a
offline.
marketing plan.
Do we want to go in terms of this, these list of events? How do you want to handle that? You said you want to just keep them and then maybe as each event comes up, appoint someone to do a strategy for it?
Well,
Would that be?
Amy will be back. And Amy's done quite a lot of thinking about this as well. So I think that we don't have to make all the decisions tonight. The fact is, we have a list of things that we want to do, and as we jump into the new year with everyone here, and we have a calendar of events, then it's clear, and we're clearer anyway.
The only thing I have in motion that is to update is that, the, HOA in my little community, my little neighborhood, and I'm in discussion with them about having a talk. So,
Okay.
Mariner Cove.
So could we use Mariner Cove with your leadership as sort of our test, our guinea pig?
Yeah, because we'll learn.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah, I think trying these things is really important.
absolutely. As long as we don't do a face plant and publicly.
And we're also riding the wave, we're riding the momentum of a discussion about sea level rise that's going on as well.
That's true.
And that people do connect dots.
Mhm. And we can help them.
Yeah, just FYI, a lot of the water heater replacements, not a lot of, a number that when I was reading through it were replacements due to flooding.
Oh, interesting. Really? Water
Now, is
heater,
that
the water heater
salt
breaking
water? I
and
think-
flooding
is that-
or inundation?
We don't
coming
know.
in?
I don't know.
So
They had
cryptic.
to
Yeah,
use their,
yeah.
It's
What
what a
emergency-
contractor told the permitting
Yeah.
guy, I mean, it's.
No, but I
Okay.
I think that would be valid because there was a lot of flooding last year and, comes in, I don't exactly, maybe you can tell me how does that damage the water heater?
Salt water.
Just the salt environment, electrical.
I mean, that would just be on the east side though, right?
Yeah,
If it's even near there, it doesn't have to be
I mean,
in it, it has to be
because they're. up
And
high.
on
most
the
of the-
nearby shoreline.
okay.
Most of the
It
homes.
would be interesting to find out what that flooding was, and I don't know if we can chat with the with the, because it did show up in a number of those, which was
Well, I think
surprising.
you
And-
could sort of look at the dates that they occurred. and that would be-
There's some construction products that aren't guaranteed if they're installed
Yeah,
half
and
a
water.
mile of the shore.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah,
Or
you violate the guarantee warranty. If you install it underwater, or,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
expose it to
Two,
water
right,
or whatever.
right, right.
I think Amy will benefit from this discussion. It's too bad that she wasn't here, so.
We
Yeah.
can watch.
Well, maybe have a glass of wine and watch it on TV.
Wait,
Well,
um,
I also think as each event comes up, there can be, you know, maybe there'll be a little more thorough contribution from everybody and a little more research and strategy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, and she can bring her expertise too,
Mhm.
yeah. I don't know.
Like this idea about education outreach related to the new town hall.
I love that.
That's like fertile ground. I don't know what that means.
Oh, I have ideas.
But and the date is March.
The
Well,
date is not confirmed.
Yeah.
Is that right?
This
But
is-
do you have like
this
a bubble of time? And the reason I ask is that I'm sure there's gonna be, that there's going, you know, it would make sense to do tours, community tours of the new facility.
Yeah,
And that is the ideal moment to have banners up and how-tos, and I mean, that's just a spectacular opportunity. There's gonna be huge curiosity about the new building.
I love that idea.
I heard at the volunteers dinner that there's going to be I don't know, display or part, something about Corte Madera history and that sort of thing. Do you know about that?
I am not involved.
Yes,
It's a permanent, that's
Yes,
a
you're right.
permanent
It's
fixture.
a permanent,
You're right.
so that's another attraction for people to be drawn in to see this history that John Hale's done up and link that with, so it's more than just, you know, the beating over the head about water heaters.
Yeah.
No, it's not beating anyone over the head. It's like cool 21st century stuff.
Yeah, and there will be a display somewhere in the town hall about the sustainability features.
has that been defined?
No.
That's,
None of the-
Cool stuff. that's
I was
in
gonna, I wrote to myself that when we get to discuss future agenda items, we could shape this a little bit for February.
but if this happens maybe in March, that doesn't give a lot of time
I
to
don't-
design and production.
I don't think I don't think the opening's gonna happen overnight.
Well, no, but first quarter, second quarter, third.
I thought we were gonna get a tour of the town hall.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that initiate it? Right?
Well, yeah, but when is that going to be completed and open to the public? And when are they
Yeah,
going to be doing
spring.
those
Spring
tours?
2024.
Yeah.
Spring 2024. Okay, let's, fingers crossed that it's second quarter.
I thought we were gonna get a tour right away, like while it was still open.
Oh,
Us?
The walls
well,
were
it's,
open. Yeah,
oh, cool.
Adam mentioned that,
Oh,
didn't he, at a meeting?
I don't know if
Before they
that's.
close it in?
Yeah. He said that would be a good time.
not a public, but us,
No,
because we're
us, the
special.
committee,
We're special.
for the committee.
I do
Probably
recall
all
that
have
as
to-
I recall that as a discussion item. Could you check with Adam to see if there's people that want to do a tour before they close in the walls?
The planning commissioners might be good to have, do that as well.
But it'd be educational for us.
Let's keep it simple. Let's just keep it us, yeah.
Mhm.
Otherwise it gets more complicated. Okay, was there any other discussion on this item?
So what I've heard is that, Pat, Bill and Leslie are gonna take this offline and develop a more detailed community engagement strategy to bring back at the next meeting,
Specifically for gas appliances.
just for gas.
That's what that was my understanding, is that that's what we were focused on, is making the connection for people on gas water heaters and gas furnaces. We could throw induction stoves in there too. Is that,
I think you could also
That
do
wasn't-
it for,
That wasn't what I.
And also for EV.
okay, and charge it, fine.
Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we should, I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood then, not being in the room, but my I think we want to do is align this with our priorities for 2024, right, as a committee and sort of the town's action plan. I would say we should pick 3 messages, maybe 2, that we want to get across. Think about who are the right people who need to receive those messages, at what time, and what's the right way to reach them. I mean, that's what I thought. So it could very well be water heaters. It may be EV chargers for, I don't know, commercial landlords or something, but we need to decide what the messaging priorities are. I think in addition to sort of, as Karen said, the general awareness discussion that we're having with people at these various events. But I thought we were talking about, let's pick a couple of topics that align with our priorities for 2024, which we've identified, I guess, to be approved by the council soon. But and just do a couple of targeted strategies to get the key points across to the right people at the right time.
Yes, I don't think there's confusion. I think you said it well. There's the two-pronged approach. Let me just see if I can paraphrase. So there's the general outreach, and we recognize the different types of events that require different approaches. But then there's the specific outreach on these particular topic areas that are connected to permitting and community awareness around
Stuff the town can do.
where the town touches them in the process of replacing or remodeling. And that would include EV charging. It would include, theoretically could also include solar, but I thought we were focused more on gas appliances, but we can talk further about that and make a decision.
All explode.
I think that the heart of what you just said that was inspiring to me was getting an objective-based set of tactics about how do we reach people as they're making decisions closer to the building permit counter.
But before they get there.
Yeah, and so that's something we've talked about, and we don't really have it that focused.
Right.
There's nothing that we've done that I'm aware of that's that focused. So
Right.
I think it's lovely. I mean, it's great.
But it's a separate set of strategies than the general outreach, which includes, not limited to, writing on, the Friday Chronicles and outreach in the community and the website. It's targeted, as you said.
Yeah.
I would put a website revisit up, a website refresh
I would too.
on the list for 2024.
And materials as well.
Maybe to include this, I spoke with Phoebe, I find the website hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I go to the town, I'm thinking, well, where is it? What does it do? And I click. So maybe that's a thought too, because I didn't think the website was, I thought it was pretty good, but I just had trouble figuring out where it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Where our page is.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay,
Merry Christmas.
I just Googled find it.
is that clear as mud?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's really
Yeah.
a discussion, so
Okay,
excited to.
was there anybody online live that wanted to weigh in on our discussion?
Checking for raised hands. Anyone who wants to comment on this item? I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, if there's a hand that comes up late, we can catch them. Moving on though, is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Updates and reports, starting with staff.
Just had a follow-up from the last meeting and actually share my screen again if I can, but the responses that we received from Christina Rourke regarding the inventory. So these were all sent out to the committee members by email after the last meeting, but Dave requested that we go over them in case there are any members of the public who are curious regarding how the transportation emissions are calculated. Those are using VMT data from MTC. And it is a model, so it's imperfect, and Christine goes through here some of the ways that it's imperfect. And also some of the other resources that are available to see how we're making progress on the transportation side, such as looking at the EV adoption rates, which Martin has done a lot of.
Yeah.
It's a work from home and that's stop commuting now.
Yeah, as well as this
That's
data from the American Commute Survey.
Public transit is a.
And then she also answered the question about the 2-year lag, and that is the data lag. Okay, great. So were there any follow-up questions to Christine's responses?
So that data lag, is that,
Availability.
close of the calendar year of 2021, and then the data becomes available 6 months later and then has to get churned, or is it a year later? I mean, I think
I
that
think it just depends on the agency that she.
we do the reporting.
Yeah, so there's.
And there's a lot of
FTE,
sources.
There's PGE, PG&E, there's.
Yeah,
It's a mess.
it is a mess.
I have, I don't know, a follow-up, but
So we'll just leave it
I know
there.
she did the water heater contribution from estimates. And I would be interested in that calculation, possibly.
Say that again, Karen, I'm sorry.
She did the, when we saw, 2 months ago, since I wasn't here in November, but she noted that the water heater contribution to the typical Corte Madera resident was greater than furnace, and I know when I did modeling at PG&E, it was the other way around, furnace was more.
Yeah, I think
This was.
it is furnaces. I think it
Well,
is.
that wasn't what the
Yeah,
data said.
overall, in Corte Madera, it is water heating is the largest.
What was was it? I'm trying to
very
remember, it was
close,
like 20, it was like,
Both were 40, there were 40 and 40 is what
yeah,
I
that's,
remember.
yeah, okay,
See.
okay,
I
okay,
think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
overall California, and
No.
now we have those more specific data to Corte Madera.
Yeah, that's true.
California, I think it's a little bit more
So let
skewed,
me
but
just say,
There's- yeah.
having done
Yeah.
estimates of PG,
Yeah.
what it used to be, and things have gotten more efficient, was furnace was 60%. This is overall, this is Northern California.
right,
Water
PG&E
heating
is
was
territory.
30%, cooking was 10.
right,
I think furnaces have gotten more efficient, but not that efficient.
right, I agree.
And and I'm looking at my bill now, I have an old furnace, so that probably throws that out. And I have a point of use water heater, so that's, but man, let me tell you, my water heating is this and my furnace is
Mhm.
this, so. It could not be, I'm biased from a sample of one, but,
Yeah.
and also work from PG&E, but it
It
seems,
seemed off.
I'd just like to look at the assumptions she used, yeah.
Yeah, so I can send out that
Okay.
slideshow again. That particular slide is based on the California Residential Appliance Saturation Survey, CoStar data for the California Commercial End Use Survey, and then California Department of Finance E5 data. And
Well, I'm sure the way it's spread through Corte Madera is probably temperature data and how that relates to heating. Because otherwise you couldn't spread it towards regions, would be my guess, but I don't know. I'd love to see a little bit more on how it actually goes to some.
Karen, is there something that the data is telling you or not telling you that would change what you might do as a committee?
If water heating really is much less than we're seeing and furnaces are greater, then yes, then
We should emphasize the furnace.
That emphasize the furnace.
Let's just
yeah.
recirculate the report again
So,
and, or
per capita water use declined 29% since 2005 in Marin. From the water district.
Yes, but I think the
I
majority.
know, I'm just like pulling that one little
That's
data
correct. I
point
know.
out from this.
Water, I don't know if you're looking at water heating or water use per se, but I think a lot of that. I'm speculating from what I've heard is landscaping, that kind of use, because people have really cut down. That's one of the major uses. So when you reduce it, that's typically it, as opposed to, I don't think people are using less hot water. Could be wrong, but that'd be my first guess. But anyway, I just like to know, I know that's the data she's using, but then you have to use certain assumptions to bring it down.
I think
Yeah.
that's probably a question that only Christine can
Yes,
answer. so-
yeah, okay, great.
Can I,
Um,
Yeah.
can I just make a comment about the actual transportation data? And her
Yeah,
reply?
please do.
So I was one of the people who asked for that, and the reason I asked, and I guess her answer confirmed, I think it's probably obvious to everybody, but just to reinforce the point, is that the improvements that are being made in Corte Madera will not show up in the data. So when we count the progress that we're making against our ultimate goal of getting, I think it's 80% reduction by 2040, is that the right number? And we've done, X% so far. It is purely an estimate, and it's not going to be, we're not going to benefit from some of the changes that we're driving in terms of the data. So I wonder if it wouldn't be helpful. I'm not suggesting we recalculate it by any stretch, so don't get me wrong, but I wonder if we have some of the other data. I think both for us as a committee and for any interested parties, it'd be useful to show, for instance, if our EV adoption rate is higher than the average that they're using in the model, we should talk about that. If we think that there's higher, bike use or something in Corte Madera than some other places, or that we get penalized because of, people coming to the mall or whatever, it's probably worth just keeping that in mind, because I think as we try to track our progress against the stated objective here of emissions reduction, we're not getting credit for stuff that may happen.
So Pat, how are you proposing to measure that, or are you, or?
Well, I just thought Phoebe just said something about Martin had been tracking, for instance, EV adoption rates in Marin. So that would be an interesting thing to highlight if we're actually above average in terms of EV
That we
adoption.
actually do get
We do
data
have that
on,
data.
and,
Yeah.
with the annual, we're in April, we'll have a population rate for Corte Madera, which will be very useful. And we're going to be getting EV sales data. We're at 30% now or more
And maybe
already. So that's good.
Yeah, and
Right.
she said in her thing that it wouldn't, that's the kind of thing that wouldn't be captured because they're using an average, and I think it's a 5-year update or something like that. So anyway, it's just a point to be cognizant that we're not getting, we're it's very precise about, we've had a 29% reduction. It's like, no, we haven't. We have had, it's a rough,
Right.
very rough approximation.
Right.
We might be
Right.
doing better or worse than it looks, but at least, we should note the outliers to the extent that we understand them.
And the source of the EV sales data is?
It's from Energy Commission. They get it from GMB. It's good stuff. It's just got a heck of a lag.
Yeah.
Oh, and also the California New Car Dealers Association, they focus heavily on who's buying what, so where.
that's a really good source too.
It is.
Really understanding the demographics here.
Yeah.
Huh, that's good.
New electric Rolls Royce and that sort of thing.
Is that your battery?
It's the one in the other room. So, but it should be fine for the next
Okay.
we don't have anything else to share on the screen, I don't think. And then the only other update I had was, well, you all hopefully already know the January meeting is being canceled, so the first Climate Action Committee meeting of 2024 will be on February 21st.
Any committee member updates?
I'll just.
I just have one.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go on, please, Patrick. Go ahead. please.
I don't know if this is relevant or not. Well, firstly, I just want to say, actually, we're getting our heat pump hot water heater installed tomorrow, matter of fact.
Yay.
So I don't know, Karen, what your data set was. We might be the one out of the 18.
Did you get it permitted?
He told me he got it permitted. The contractor did. So we'll find out. But yeah, so just for people to know that it wasn't quite as good as your friend Kevin's deal there, David, but it was still, I think, net $1,200 to us out of pocket after everything's said and done, which, for a new.
That's amazing.
That's
Very, yeah. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Ours is working fine, but it's 16 years old. So I figured, you know what, this is exactly as we were talking about the communication thing. Like they said, there's a couple things that are going away. One of them's going away in March. There's another one going away at the end of 2024. I'm talking subsidies or incentives. So this is the kind of thing where there is a timeliness to the message, which I think is useful. So, but thank you, David, for sharing that. I think that was Quick Carbon who we ended up going with there. And the other thing, just to mention that Phil and Phoebe and I have been working on the EV charger thing a bit, and we've talked to a vendor in the multi-tenant residential space who has a solution which is kind of comes at things differently than some of the other stuff I'd seen before. So theirs is really like a low power solution that's designed to be in every spot and allow everybody to charge at the same time in all the spots. It won't charge your car completely overnight, but it'll give you enough to kind of get to work and back, and maybe you can charge along the way. So we're sort of investigating that as an alternate approach. And there are some subsidies out there as well for certain types of buildings.
Transitioning.
Yeah.
Did you, I mentioned to Phoebe, there's EV chargers that are on streetlights,
Mhm.
and there's Los Angeles has made use of them, and you said you're gonna follow up. I would be very interested in that, particularly for me, because I don't have a driveway. So, have you heard of that?
We
I think
talked
we
about
did-
that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
talked
we
about
discussed
it.
it
Talked about it.
last month, right? Somebody else, I think, had
Yeah,
actually had some experience with that. I do not.
Okay,
Yeah, it's not new technology. It's all over Europe.
yeah,
And it would, I think we talked about we talked about piloting, without being too specific, but could we as a town, with input from this committee, pilot some things that, we could then sort of test drive, literally, figuratively, whether things were appropriate, what lessons learned. But
Yeah, I think that's on the EV work plan.
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
If you had to pick a place, would it be someplace like Old Town Square?
It would be where there are light poles and
Yeah.
parking.
Yeah, I'm trying to be really precise here.
I
about
know.
Where would it be in
In front of Karen's house.
Yes, that's actually, it worked really well.
No, but there are light poles along streets in residential neighborhoods. I mean, it's, that's where it would make sense.
I guess where I thought it might make sense is for people like me, and I know others who don't have garages.
Right.
Garages have been converted.
Right.
So you're looking for that,
Exactly.
and I think it just needs to be, can be anywhere. But people will say, oh, I can't have a charger because I'm in a garage, so.
Well, it's,
Okay.
the locations would be where there is a place for a car to park next to a light pole. Wherever that
It's
is,
on the
and we
street.
have a lot of
Yeah.
that, a lot of that sort of setup. Residential streets where cars are parking and there are light poles, so finding those specific locations and then doing some kind of pilot project, which there's CEC funding for, I would bet, would be a really cool thing to do. I mean, it would be, I don't know that there have been any other pilot programs like that, even in the Bay Area, certainly not in Marin, as far as I know. That would be
Wouldn't
exciting,
PG&E have to be involved with that?
probably, but
Because they got the poles, right?
no, it's the General Services Administration here in Marin County has most of the poles,
Yeah.
Because
the
they're
GSA.
combined utilities.
Not sure, honestly, but it's not, PG&E does not own the poles. They own the transmission poles, the big wooden, but the light poles are the town.
The light pole.
The light poles are the town
Light poles.
and the GSA, yeah.
Not the total.
Yeah, distribution poles, okay.
Okay.
Who do we talk to about that?
GSA.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges with that approach, just because how the light posts are billed, and they're not
Right.
billed by usage, they're billed by a rate, is my understanding. So setting them up for car charging would be changing the system, but that is something that is on the work plan to be explored.
Onward,
Right.
That's good.
That's on the work plan to be
To be
explored.
Shouldn't forget it.
Thank you for reminding us.
Any
to
other-
talk about it.
Patrick, was there something else? No, the committee received 2 applications from students that want to be ambassadors. And
Nice.
we're gonna get back to them, and we were committed to making a decision before January 1. So we're gonna let them know, and since I haven't spoken to either one of them,
They're on winter
Um,
break.
and they might be listening, we're just gonna tell you that it's in progress.
That's exciting.
Okay.
That'd be wonderful.
And so it's a brand new program, it's a brand new initiative, and I'm grateful that we had 2 applicants that were interested, and we'll follow up.
So,
And Amy has been helping with that and Phoebe's been doing the heavy lifting, so. So,
I wouldn't say I've been doing heavy lifting.
okay. Any other updates or reports?
I attended the climate collaborative meeting last
The
Thursday.
CAS?
Yeah. And one of the members was trying to approach the Tamalpais Union High School District about promoting climate change with students and so forth.
Promoting climate change or like.
solutions.
Dealing with solutions
Yeah.
with, oh, sorry, climate change solutions with us. And hopefully we're all talking about the same thing. And
Just checking.
okay. And was, they were trying to approach the school board and were meeting some resistance, I guess, that was kind of unexpected. And one of the other members suggested, why doesn't your climate action committee write a letter to the town council requesting that the town council send a letter to the school board advocating for climate change?
And getting parents as well and teachers
Advocating for climate change education.
Education, yes,
engagement.
engagement, yeah.
More than what they do now.
Apparently, they don't have the bandwidth to really see that. They have a lot of money to build a lot of things.
So it'd be a letter from the town council to the school board.
Right.
You know, I'm kind of surprised because, I had climate change education in middle school in the dark ages, you know, it's part of the science class.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm a little curious as to what exactly they're asking for.
Well, they're asking for student participation and the
More.
students are petitioning the school board and they're
Right.
apparently getting in a loop where they're not getting a lot of response.
So participation in actions per se or education?
In actions,
Actions.
not education.
Oh, okay.
So what's your proposal?
Well, I'm just saying that we maybe, I suggest that I speak with this member that was there and get some more specifics about what the problems were and what sort of letter I might write or we might write.
And if it's Tam Unified High School District, that includes Redwood High School, which
Yes.
is where our kids go.
Yes.
So
So help me navigate this one, Phoebe. So the topic here is updates and reports. We can't really make a decision here, can we?
Right, it sounds like Bill is saying that he's gonna follow up on this and bring back some more information at a future meeting.
Or if one of the other council members or committee members was desiring to work with Phil and draft a letter to council.
I'm wondering if this is something that maybe our student ambassador might assist with once they're on board. If
Yes.
They would have more updated information about, you know, what the concerns really are in their school.
Did we just lose the
We just
display?
did, yes, the battery died.
Yeah, it should still be broadcast. It's still recording.
Anything, I'm willing to get more specific information, you know, it was briefly touched on and I didn't get a
Well,
real,
it's good to, get
what
that
the
and then-
specific problems are, or might be, or.
I think what has been agendized, what has been discussed a little bit. And so that a coherent letter could be drafted for council. And then getting input from the ambassadors is kind of interesting unless this is really timely.
I don't think it's particularly timely, no,
Okay,
but that's a good idea.
because I don't think any of us are very educated on, to Karen's point, what they're actually.
doing or not doing what they're asking.
Well,
for.
teaching, I guess. The other thing is, one way to have them be create actions or whatever, like work with each one of the town's climate action committee, right? That could be one thing.
Starting a letter writing campaign from the students and the parents and the teacher. I mean, it's that
Well, I
kind
guess,
of,
no,
I understand, I'm
Yeah,
adding
okay.
on.
yeah, you're adding on, okay.
So I don't think we can take action here, but I think we're encouraging these
Yeah.
discussions.
And I have not been able to, sort of your sub or whatever it is, I've not been able to attend the prior meetings. They switched the name. How
Yeah.
could they? They switched
What day
this
is it
week.
now?
Hmm,
Is it still Thursdays?
They switched it, again. Jody keeps switching it. so
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure when the next one is.
Makes it hard.
I thought it was
Yeah.
tomorrow at like 4.
No, they,
No, they changed it.
Last week at 4.
They changed it to last week.
yeah.
Oh.
And I had like, wait a minute, I'm a doctor.
I'm depending on her sending an email to me, but,
Thanks for attending that, Phil. Was there any other updates from? the
No.
no, there was a lot of discussion surrounding whether climate action plans, how they should relate to the general plan of the town. And how they should be more nimble, because I guess the general plan is a 20-year cycle and
But it gets reviewed every 5, right? Every 10?
The housing element, but not the.
Not the general plan.
No, that is the.
It's very general.
so whether to include a clause in the general plan if it ever comes up, when it comes up, that okay, we have a climate action plan and it's nimble.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of discussion. Some municipalities here embed it into their general plan
Right.
and others keep it separate so it can be more nimble. So it's just something to have on the radar.
Anything else? No?
No.
No.
Nothing funny.
Okay. Future agenda items?
We discussed one, which is the engagement.
There's one topic that's come up that I'd like to find a way to agendize, and this may take some discussion with the building department. There was a couple of discussions now about the people being surprised with the cost of installing a heat pump where it avoids side yard setback issues and noise issues. And so what people are being told is that by contractors and maybe by building officials is that the condenser needs to be in the backyard or the front yard. And so people don't want to necessarily put the condenser in the backyard. And most of the time, the electrical supply or the furnace are best accessed from the side yard,
Mhm.
not the rear yard. So if we could, my proposal is to have an agenda item to discuss this more formally
Mhm.
about the problems that people are having and the potential solutions that could be in agreement with the fire code and the building code.
So staff did receive an email from, I believe it was Bob Bundy about this topic. And we discussed it at a staff meeting, and we're gonna be looking at it further and seeing whether there is a potential to incorporate some changes to setback rules to better allow for heat pump installation.
Can that surface here in February?
I need to check on what the timeline is. There's some other changes that are being made right now, but
That's
if
great.
it lines up, yes.
That's great. I think that as we're trying to get people to use heat pumps, where there can be more clarity and maybe some understanding just about requirements in the code and the fire code and the building code and the sound ordinance and more clarity about this, I think it'd be helpful. So if this committee can support that, it'd be useful.
Yes, well, what can we do to help that?
And Bob Bundy's gonna continue to bring this up on my Sunday bike ride until it's addressed, so.
Yeah. The other thing I think we need to be aware is, I have a split system, but I use it for cooling. Theoretically, I can use it for heating. But, I live on Redwood Avenue and the houses are close together. And I was told, if you want to have a heat pump, I do have a backyard that adjuts another backyard, very small, 8 feet, another backyard that's not used. I would have to get a variance put it back there because it's too close into the noise, so. I think it's worth noting that there's probably a lot of things where the noise is an issue. And, just
And
too
they-
close to a building.
Yeah, I think just objectifying this a
Mhm.
little
What
bit. so-
decibels are we talking about?
Yeah, and so, because I think that there's a lot of, uh, things that are thought that may not be true.
Right.
Well, let me just, I hate to bring it back to me, but let me just say, this was my experience. I put in a split system, which is a heat pump, but a very
Right. Many
Quiet.
sites, right.
quiet heat pump.
Mhm.
And I wanted to put it underneath my house, which I have this open. I have a deck, which, it's an enclosure on the bottom, so it's closed. And it was within, I think, 12 feet of my neighbor's bedroom window, which is on a lower level. Maybe it was more or less. And he's a noise engineer. And it was perfectly legal. Everything was fine. It's a very quiet system. He was furious. Why, this is a noisy thing, and I'm like, it's really quiet. He's, well, what if I hear this hum at night? So, I mean, it's, I think it's a huge,
It's maybe not a huge issue, but it is something that needs to be looked at. And I wonder how the decibel level of a system, any system would compare to just, for instance,
And
an air conditioner.
oh,
Right?
the split system is.
No, I know, but
Compared to-
if we permit air conditioners,
But air conditioners also have to meet those requirements.
Yes.
And, until recently, we haven't had any need for air
right,
conditioning.
neighbors
All of that.
would have, anyway, but so it's like, let's make sure we're being consistent and addressing how things have changed over time in terms of noise reduction, decibel reduction, efficiency, all those other things. So again, it goes back to being objective. And then we can grapple with how do we solve the
Is he
problem.
measuring it?
No, but I mean. Even, we tested, I had him over and it's on, but
Does he have
he is a,
Double pane windows?
it means nothing, they want to have their windows open in the summer, which is when they're gonna have it open. Now, this is the whole deal. No, and he's, he knows the decibel levels.
Yeah.
No,
That's
it's nothing. It's just, but,
Right.
I mean, to your point, no, and what Martin has said, there are regulations already
Right.
for all this, and that's why split systems are okay, because they are so quiet, you can barely hear them. But,
I think the threshold is whether you disturb the sensibilities of reasonable people.
Yes.
So if we can objectify this.
Yes, there you go.
When you find a reason.
It's the unreasonable.
And
Yeah.
then the other future agenda item that I kind of cataloged here was just scheduling when we can see town hall. Or
Yes,
as a group, hopefully before they've closed up and then
we wanted to.
Well, my concern would be, just again, toured facilities like this is when it's not closed up, there are liabilities and hard hats and on
Yep,
and on
we
and on.
can-
So,
they get over it,
well, okay, yeah, but there's liability, so let's
Yep.
figure it out, yeah.
steel toed shoes.
I will check. Okay.
Any other future agenda item?
I think we covered it all.
Hey,
Yeah. Any other topics? Hearing none, we'll close the year out, and the December meeting we'll see you in February.